I believed I had the perfect marriage. Then someone knocked on my door. The doorbell rang at 2:14 on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of reviewing fabric swatches for the Henderson renovation, comparing a sage green linen against a dusty rose velvet, when that sound cut through the quiet of my home like a knife through silk. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tom was at work. The kids were grown and gone. My housekeeper, Maria, had already left for the day. I set down my coffee, still warm, in the hand-painted Italian mug Tom had bought me in Florence for our 20th anniversary, and walked to the front door. Through the frosted glass, I could see a figure. Small. Female. And beside her, two smaller shapes. Children. I opened the door. She was young, mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was dressed simply. Jeans, a white blouse, sensible flats. Pretty, in that understated way that sneaks up on you. And clutching her hands in front of her like she was physically trying to hold herself together. Behind her stood two children. A boy, maybe 6, with sandy brown hair and freckles across his nose. A girl, around 4, hiding behind her mother's leg, thumb in her mouth. "Mrs. Bennet?" the woman asked. Her voice was steady, but I could see her chin trembling. "Yes." She took a breath, the kind of breath you take before you jump off a cliff. "My name is Diana Hollis. I've been in a relationship with your husband for 8 years. She paused, and her eyes flicked down to the children. "And these are his children." The sage green swatch was still in my hand. I remember looking down at it, watching my fingers go white around the edges. The color seemed suddenly obscene. Cheerful. Wrong. 6 words. 6 words, and 24 years of my life rearranged themselves into a lie. I'm Carolyn Marie Bennett, 50 years old. For the past 26 years, I've run Bennett Interiors, a design firm that's transformed some of the most beautiful historic homes in Savannah, Georgia. My husband, or rather, the man I believed was my husband in every meaningful sense of the word, is Thomas Bennett. Tom, 53, a commercial real estate developer who built Bennett Development Group from nothing into a company worth, at last count, somewhere north of $12 million. We live in the historic district, in a Greek Revival home built in 1847 that I spent 3 years restoring to its original glory. 4 bedrooms, a wraparound porch with columns that have seen more than a century and a half of Georgia summers, a garden out back where I grow roses and hydrangeas, and, every spring, the most magnificent peonies you've ever seen. We have 2 children, Andrew, 23, who graduated from Emory Law School and now works at a firm in Manhattan. Sophie, 20, finishing her senior year at the University of Georgia. They're the best things I've ever done with my life. And for 24 years, I believed I had the kind of marriage other people envied. The kind where you finish each other's sentences. Where you still hold hands at the movies. Where your husband brings you coffee in bed on Sunday mornings and tells you you're beautiful even when you haven't showered in 2 days. I believed I was lucky. I was wrong. Let me tell you about my marriage. The one I thought I had. Tom and I met in 1997 at a charity gala for the Savannah Historic Foundation. I was 23, fresh out of design school, working as an assistant for a firm that paid me barely enough to cover my rent. He was 26, just starting out in real estate, with big dreams and a smile that made my knees weak. He asked me to dance. I said yes. 3 years later, we were married in a ceremony at the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, with 200 guests and enough white roses to fill a small greenhouse. Our early years were lean. Tom was building his business, and I was building mine. We lived in a tiny apartment above a bakery on Broughton Street, where the smell of fresh bread woke us every morning. We ate spaghetti 4 nights a week because it was cheap. We fought about money and made up in our cramped little bedroom. But we were happy. At least I was happy. And I believed he was too. When Andrew was born in 2001, Tom cried. Actually cried, right there in the delivery room, holding this tiny red-faced bundle like he was the most precious thing in the world. "We made this," he whispered to me. "We made him." And Sophie, 3 years later, he was the same. Tears streaming down his face. "Our family is complete," he said. By 2010, both businesses were thriving. We bought the house in the historic district. We took vacations to Europe. We sent our kids to the best schools. We went to church every Sunday at First Presbyterian, where Tom served on the board of deacons and I organized the annual Christmas bazaar. We were pillars of the community. Everyone said so. The Bennetts? Oh, they're wonderful. Such a lovely couple. So devoted to each other. I heard variations of that sentiment more times than I can count. At dinner parties, at school events, at Tom's golf club, where the wives would corner me and ask, with something like awe in their voices, "How do you do it? 25 years, and you still look at each other like newlyweds." I didn't have an answer. I just thought that's what marriage was supposed to be like when you did it right. Shows what I knew. My mother, Ruth Marie Calloway, died in 2019. Breast cancer. She was 74. She was the strongest woman I ever knew. Raised 3 kids on a teacher's salary after my father left when I was 7. Never complained. Never asked for help. Just put her head down and did what needed to be done. Before she died, she wrote me a letter. I found it in her things afterward, in an envelope with my name on it, tucked inside her Bible. "My darling Carolyn," it read, "you have built a beautiful life, a good husband, wonderful children, a home filled with love. I am so proud of you. But remember this, a woman's worth is not measured by the life she builds for others. It is measured by the truth she holds in her own heart. Never be afraid of the truth, even when it hurts. The truth is a gift, even when it comes wrapped in pain." I kept that letter in my nightstand drawer. I read it every year on her birthday. And for years, I thought I understood what she meant. I didn't. Not really. Not until Diana Hollis rang my doorbell. See, my mother knew something about betrayal. My father didn't just leave, he left for his secretary, a 23-year-old named Linda who worked in his accounting office. They moved to Florida. He started a new family. We never heard from him again. My mother never remarried. She said once, when I was old enough to understand, "I gave my heart away completely once. I won't make that mistake again." I remember thinking, at the time, that she was being dramatic. That surely not all men were like my father. That I had found one of the good ones. I was so sure I had found one of the good ones. After Mom died, I inherited $187,000. Her life savings, plus the money from selling her little house. Every penny of it went into our joint account, because that's what married couples do. That's what trust looks like. Tom thanked me for contributing to our future. He said we should invest it wisely. He said he'd handle it. I didn't ask questions. Why would I? This was Tom. My Tom. The man who cried when our children were born. The man who still kissed me goodbye every morning. The man who, as it turned out, had been living a double life for nearly a decade. Looking back now, I can see the signs. I can see them so clearly it makes me physically ill. The late nights at the office that started around 2016. Big deal closing, honey. Don't wait up. The new gym membership that year. Tom had never been interested in fitness before, but suddenly he was going 3-4 times a week. He got leaner. Bought new clothes. Started paying attention to his hair. "You look great," I told him. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." He smiled. That charming, easy smile that I'd fallen in love with 30 years ago. "Just trying to stay healthy for you, sweetheart." The business trips. Oh, the business trips. Atlanta, 2 or 3 times a month. Sometimes Charleston. Once Jacksonville. "Can't be helped," he'd say, kissing my forehead as he packed his overnight bag. "You know how this business works." I didn't question it. Why would I? Commercial real estate deals take time. They require face-to-face meetings. Travel is part of the job. The phone calls he'd take in the other room. "Work stuff," he'd say when he came back. "Boring. You wouldn't be interested." I wasn't interested. I trusted him. The receipts I found in his jacket pocket once. Dinner for 2 at a restaurant in Atlanta I'd never heard of. $247.83. I asked him about it, casually, while we were eating breakfast. "Client dinner," he said without looking up from his newspaper. "The Morrison account. You know how these things go." I didn't know, but I nodded and poured more coffee and pushed the receipt out of my mind. The time our joint credit card statement showed a $3,400 charge at a jewelry store. "Anniversary gift," Tom said quickly. "For us. You'll see." Our anniversary came and went. He gave me earrings. Beautiful, yes, but clearly not $3,400 worth. I didn't say anything. I told myself I must have misread the statement. The calendar he kept on his phone, separate from the shared family one. Work stuff, he said when I glimpsed it once. Just work stuff. Always just work stuff. For 8 years, I lived with a man who was building an entire second life within driving distance of our home, and I never suspected a thing. 8 years. 2,920 days of lies. And I might never have known it all if Diana Hollis hadn't finally decided to tell me the truth. Let me take you back to that doorstep. To that moment when a stranger with 2 children told me everything I thought I knew was a lie. Diana was trembling. I could see it in her hands, in the set of her shoulders. But her eyes were steady, determined. May I come in? She asked. Please. What I have to tell you, you need to hear it. And I don't think you want your neighbors to overhear. I should have slammed the door. I should have screamed. I should have done something, anything, other than what I did do, which was step aside and let this woman and her children into my home. We sat in my living room. The living room I had designed myself, with its antique fireplace and hand-plastered walls and the Tiffany lamp Tom had bought me for our 15th anniversary. Diana sat on the edge of the Restoration Hardware sofa, her children quiet beside her, looking around at my home with wide, curious eyes. The boy, I learned later his name was Ethan, pointed at a photograph on the mantel. Tom and me, on a beach in Portugal, laughing at something the photographer had said. That's Daddy, he said. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Diana told me everything. 8 years of everything. They'd met in 2016, when she was working as an administrative assistant at Bennett Development Group. She was 26, fresh out of a bad relationship, vulnerable. Tom was charming. Of course he was charming. I knew that better than anyone. He took her to lunch, then dinner, then a weekend trip to Charleston to look at a property. He told me his marriage was over, Diana said, her voice flat. He said you were only staying together for the kids. That as soon as Sophie went to college, he was going to file for divorce. He said it was just a matter of time. I couldn't speak. I literally could not form words. I believed him, she continued. 4 years, I believed him. He bought me an apartment in Statesboro, far enough away that no one would find out, close enough that he could visit. He paid my rent. He bought me a car. He was there when Ethan was born. He held my hand in the delivery room and told me he loved me. She pulled out her phone and showed me photographs. Tom, holding a newborn baby. Tom, at a birthday party, blowing out candles on a cake. Tom, on a beach somewhere. Tybee Island, maybe, building a sandcastle with a little boy. Tom, living an entire life I knew nothing about. Last week, Diana said, I found something in his jacket. A receipt from a jeweler. For an anniversary gift. And the date, it was your anniversary. Not ours. I started digging. I found your wedding announcement online. I found articles about you, about your business. I found everything. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw tears in her eyes. Mrs. Bennett, I didn't come here to destroy your life. I came because I realized he's been lying to both of us. For 8 years. And I thought you deserved to know. The sage green fabric swatch was still on the coffee table. I stared at it, unable to process what I was hearing. In the kitchen, the coffee maker beeped. I'd forgotten to turn it off. Normal sounds. Normal life. Everything normal except the fact that my world was collapsing. The children, I finally managed. They're really his? Diana nodded. DNA test if you want. But look at them. Look at Ethan. I looked. Sandy brown hair. The same shade as Tom's, before it started going gray. Freckles across the nose, just like Tom's childhood photos. And the eyes, those clear hazel eyes that I'd stared into for 24 years of marriage. My husband had 2 children I'd never known about. He had a whole other family. And I was supposed to pour him a glass of wine when he got home from work tonight. I started laughing. Not because anything was funny, nothing would ever be funny again, but because the alternative was screaming, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to stop. Something shifted in me that afternoon. Something fundamental. Diana stayed for 3 hours. We talked. We compared notes. We built a timeline of lies that stretched back nearly a decade. By the time she left, with my phone number in her contacts and a promise to stay in touch, I had moved past shock into something else entirely. Something colder. Something with teeth. I called in sick to work the next morning, something I hadn't done in 15 years. Tom left for the office at 7:30, kissing me on the forehead as usual, telling me he loved me as usual. I smiled. I said I love you too. And then I watched his car disappear down the street and got to work. First call, Reginald Hawkins. Reggie, 62 years old, retired Savannah Police Department detective, now running the most discreet private investigation firm in the Low Country. $200 an hour. Worth every penny. Mrs. Bennett, he said, when I'd finished explaining the situation. I've been doing this for 30 years. And I have to tell you, the ones who think they're getting away with it, they always leave a trail. Tom had left a trail. Oh, had he left a trail? Within a week, Reggie had documented everything. The apartment in Statesboro, a 2-bedroom unit that Tom had been paying for since 2016, using a separate bank account I'd never known existed. Rent, $1,400 a month. Total over 8 years, $134,400. The car he'd bought Diana, a Honda CR-V registered in her name, paid for in cash from that same hidden account. $32,000. The jewelry, the vacations, the clothes, the furniture for that other apartment, the medical bills when Ethan was born, the medical bills when Lily, the little girl, was born. Reggie spread his findings across my dining room table like a prosecutor laying out evidence. Over 8 years, he said, pointing to his calculations. Your husband has spent approximately $847,000 on this other life. That's money that should have been marital assets. That's your money, Mrs. Bennett. $847,000. Nearly $1 million, funneled away to support a woman and 2 children I'd never known existed. I thought about my mother's inheritance, the $187,000 that I trustingly deposited into our joint account. Tom had invested it. Tom had handled it. Tom had probably used it to buy birthday presents for his secret children. Every number told a story. None of them were love stories. I ordered coffee. Reggie and I kept working. The bank accounts, there were 3 that I hadn't known about. The credit cards, 2 additional cards, in Tom's name only, with bills going to a P.O. box in Statesboro. The pattern of travel, not random business trips, but a carefully scheduled rotation, 2 or 3 times a week, every week for years. By the end of the second week, I had a folder that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy. 47 pages. Every receipt, every statement, every photograph, every lie documented and organized. I met with Judge Elaine Mercer on a Thursday morning. Retired judge, now practicing family law from a corner office on Bull Street with a view of Forsyth Park. 70 years old. Silver hair. Reading glasses on a chain around her neck. And a reputation for making cheating husbands cry during depositions. Mrs. Bennett, she said, after reviewing my folder for 20 minutes in complete silence. In 38 years of legal practice, I have never seen a spouse come in on day 1 with documentation this thorough. I'm an interior designer, I said. Organization is my job. She smiled. It was the kind of smile that made me glad she was on my side. Georgia is an equitable distribution state, she explained. That means we divide marital assets fairly, not necessarily equally. And what your husband has done, this isn't just adultery. This is dissipation of marital assets on a massive scale. He's been siphoning off money that should have gone to your family to support his other arrangement. What does that mean for me? It means, she said, leaning forward, that we're not just going to get you a fair settlement. We're going to get you everything. I didn't confront Tom. Not yet. For 6 weeks, I went through the motions of our perfect marriage. I made dinner. I asked about his day. I kissed him goodnight. I smiled when he told me he loved me. And every night, after he fell asleep, I lay in the dark and planned. Diana and I talked almost daily. She was staying in the apartment in Statesboro, but she was done with Tom. Done with the lies. Done with the promises that never materialized. He said he was going to leave you, she told me once, crying. Right after Sophie graduated. That was supposed to be when we could finally be together. A real family. Sophie had graduated from high school 2 years ago. Tom hadn't left. He was never going to leave, I said. He had the best of both worlds. A respectable wife at home and a young family on the side. Why would he give that up? Diana was quiet for a long moment. I was so stupid. No, I said. And I meant it. He was charming. He was convincing. He looked me in the eyes every day for 8 years and told me he loved me. If anyone was fooled, it was both of us. We made a plan. Judge Mercer helped. So did Reggie Hawkins. So did my best friend, Patty Calloway, who had lived 3 doors down for 22 years and who, when I told her everything, used vocabulary I didn't even know she possessed. That son of a, she started. I know. 8 years. 8 goddamn years. I know. She grabbed my hand across her kitchen table. What do you need? What can I do? I need a witness, I said. For what comes next? The timing had to be perfect. Thanksgiving was coming, the one holiday when our whole family gathered. Andrew was flying in from New York. Sophie was coming home from Athens. Tom's brother and sister-in-law would be there. His elderly mother. My sister. 22 people in total gathered around the table in the dining room I had spent 3 months restoring. 22 people. Plus 3 surprise guests. Now, before I tell you exactly what I did next, and trust me, it gets so much better, if you're enjoying this story, take a second to subscribe. I share stories like this every single day. Women who didn't cry in the corner. Women who planned. Women who won. You don't want to miss what comes next. Thanksgiving Day, 2024. The turkey was in the oven, a 22-pound beauty from a farm in Pembroke. The table was set with my grandmother's china. The wine was breathing. The house smelled like sage and butter and the kind of warmth that only comes from a home filled with family. Tom was in his element, charming the guests, refilling wine glasses, playing the role of patriarch like he'd been born for it. I watched him move through the room. Still handsome at 53, still charismatic, still the man everyone thought they knew. My children adored him. His mother thought he walked on water. Even my own sister had told me, just an hour earlier, "You don't know how lucky you are, Carolyn." 24 years with a man like Tom. At 3:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. Tom was closest to the door. "I'll get it," he said, wine glass in hand. I positioned myself where I could see his face. He opened the door, and there was Diana Hollis, dressed simply but nicely, with Ethan and Lily on either side of her. "Hello, Tom," she said clearly. "I hope we're not too late for dinner. I have seen my husband's face cycle through many emotions over 24 years. Joy, when our children were born. Pride, when his business succeeded. Affection, when he looked at me across a crowded room. I had never seen his face do what it did in that moment. The blood drained from his cheeks, so fast I thought he might actually faint. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. The wine glass slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers and shattered on the marble floor. "Diana," his voice came out strangled. "What? Why?" "Tom." His mother's voice from the living room. "Who is it, dear? Is everything all right?" Everything was not all right. Diana stepped inside. The children followed. Ethan looked around at the grand foyer, at the antique chandelier, at the portraits on the walls. "Daddy," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why is this house so much bigger than ours?" The room went silent. Every conversation stopped. 22 pairs of eyes turned toward the front door. I stepped forward. "Everyone," I said, my voice perfectly calm, the kind of calm that comes before a hurricane. "I'd like to introduce you to Diana Hollis. She's been Tom's girlfriend for 8 years. And these are her children. Tom's children." The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. You could have heard a heartbreak. Tom's mother clutched her chest. His brother's wife dropped her own wine glass, another casualty on the marble. Andrew, my son, stared at his father with an expression I had never seen before. Betrayal, disgust, devastation, all at once. "Dad!" Sophie's voice was small. Confused. "What is she talking about?" Tom found his voice. There's been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said, and I pulled out my phone. "Let me show you all exactly what's been happening." I had prepared a presentation, because I'm an interior designer, and presentation is what I do. Photographs of Tom with Diana. Photographs of him holding newborn Ethan. Photographs at birthday parties, on vacations, building sandcastles on the beach. Bank statements showing the $847,000 he'd hidden from our family. Receipts from the jewelry store, the car dealership, the furniture stores. 8 years of lies, organized into a slideshow that played on the television screen I'd had installed specifically for this moment. You see, I said, as the images scrolled past, Thomas hasn't just been unfaithful. He's been living an entire second life. A life paid for with money that belonged to our family. Our family, though I suppose that term doesn't mean what I thought it did. Tom tried to stop the presentation. He lunged for the TV remote, but Andrew, who had idolized his father his entire life, stepped in front of him. Don't, Andrew said. His voice was quiet, cold. I want to see. The slideshow continued. More photographs. More receipts. The apartment lease. The car registration. The medical bills from when Diana gave birth. When it was over, nobody spoke. Tom looked around the room. At his mother, who was openly weeping. At his brother, whose face had turned to stone. At his children, all 4 of them, the 2 he'd raised and the 2 he'd hidden, staring at him like they didn't recognize him. I can explain, he started. No, I said. Actually, you can't. There is no explanation that makes this okay. There is nothing you can say that will undo 8 years of betrayal. I turned to our guests. Dinner is served, I said pleasantly. Diana, children, please join us. After all, your family. Diana smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was something else in it too. Relief, maybe. Or vindication. Thank you, Carolyn, she said. I'd like that. We ate Thanksgiving dinner. 25 people now, instead of 22. The turkey was excellent. I'd brined it for 3 days. The conversation was awkward, stilted, punctuated by long silences and the occasional sob from Tom's mother. Tom sat at the head of the table, where he'd sat for 24 Thanksgivings. He didn't eat a single bite. The divorce papers were served Monday morning. Judge Mercer had prepared them weeks in advance. Fault-based divorce on grounds of adultery. Complete inventory of marital assets. Motion to freeze all accounts pending investigation. Request for forensic accounting of the past 8 years of finances. Tom hired a lawyer. The best money could buy, David Rothstein from Atlanta, known for defending wealthy men in messy divorces. It didn't help. In Georgia family court, documentation is everything. And I had more documentation than Rothstein had ever seen. Mrs. Bennett, he said during our first settlement conference, trying to intimidate me across the conference table, surely we can come to some reasonable arrangement without dragging this through the courts. I agree, I said. Your client gives me 70% of all marital assets, pays alimony of $8,000 per month for the next 10 years, and relinquishes his share of the house. Oh, and he establishes a proper child support arrangement for his other children. That seems reasonable to me. Rothstein laughed. Tom laughed. Judge Mercer slid a folder across the table. 47 pages. This documents the dissipation of marital assets totaling $847,000, she said. Under Georgia law, that money must be considered when dividing property. We're prepared to present this to any judge in the state. We're also prepared to subpoena Mr. Bennett's business records, which I suspect contain additional irregularities. Tom stopped laughing. The settlement took 7 months. 7 months of depositions, motions, counter-motions, and legal maneuvering. 7 months during which Tom moved into a hotel, then a rented condo, then, when the asset freeze made even that too expensive his office. In the end, I got exactly what Judge Mercer had promised. The house, all of it, 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, 1847 Greek Revival mine. 60% of all other marital assets. Stocks, bonds, retirement accounts. Tom's share of Bennett Development Group. Alimony of $7,500 per month for 12 years. The car, the furniture, and every piece of art we'd collected over 24 years of marriage. Tom got his clothes, his golf clubs, and his share of what was left. His business fell apart. It turned out that when your business partner and half your clients find out you've been living a double life, they start to question your judgment. His brother, Richard, who had been managing the Atlanta office, resigned. 3 major clients pulled their projects. By the time the divorce was finalized, Bennett Development Group was worth about 1/3 of what it had been. His social life imploded. First Presbyterian, asked him to step down from the Board of Deacons. The Oglethorpe Club revoked his membership. Apparently 8-year affairs with secret children violate the character standards they'd all agreed to uphold. Old friends stopped returning his calls. Dinner invitations dried up. His family, that was the hardest part to watch. His mother, Eleanor, who had always treated me like her own daughter, called me in tears after the Thanksgiving confrontation. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I had no idea. How could I have had no idea?" "Neither did I said. "That was the whole point." Andrew didn't speak to his father for 8 months. Sophie longer, nearly a year before she agreed to meet him for coffee. And even then, things were different. The father they thought they knew was gone, replaced by a stranger who had lied to them their entire lives. As for Diana, she got what she was owed too. Proper child support, $2,200 per month for Ethan and Lily until they're 18. Regular visitation, rights that Tom was legally obligated to honor. And something harder to quantify, the truth. She texted me after the divorce was finalized. "Thank you," it said, "for believing me, for listening, for including us instead of hating us." "You were lied to as much as I was," I replied. "Maybe more." It's been 18 months now. I'm sitting on my wraparound porch as I write this, watching the spring light filter through the live oaks. The roses are starting to bloom. The hydrangeas are just coming in. I have a cup of coffee in my hand, not the Florence mug, I couldn't look at it anymore, but a good mug nonetheless. Bennett Interiors is doing better than ever. It turns out that when the women of Savannah heard what happened, and they all heard, because in Savannah, news like this travels faster than sweet tea at a summer picnic, they decided to rally around me. Business increased by 40%. I had to hire 2 new designers just to keep up with demand. I sold my share of Bennett Development Group back to Tom for a fraction of what it was worth. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore. He's struggling to keep it afloat. Most weeks, I hear, he's the last one to leave the office. The house is quiet now. Just me and a rescue dog named Biscuit, a golden retriever mix I adopted 6 months ago. She's terrible at fetching and wonderful at cuddling, and she's exactly what I needed. Andrew flies down from New York every other month. He's doing well, partner track at his firm, dating a lovely woman named Jennifer, slowly healing from the betrayal. Sophie graduated in May and took a job in Atlanta. She calls me every Sunday, regular as clockwork. They're still figuring out their relationship with their father. It's complicated, as these things always are. But they know who was there for them. They know who told them the truth. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Martin, about 3 months after the confrontation. She helped me understand that what I was feeling, the anger, the grief, the occasional late-night rage at a man who had wasted 24 years of my life, was normal, expected, healthy even. "You're mourning a marriage that never really existed," she told me once. "Give yourself permission to grieve." So I grieved. I cried in her office. I cried in my car. I cried in the shower, where no one could hear me. I raged at the unfairness of it all, 24 years of devotion, repaid with lies. But somewhere along the way, the grief started to transform. Into clarity, into strength, into something that felt a lot like freedom. Dr. Martin helped me see that I hadn't lost a good marriage. I had escaped a bad one. A marriage built on deception, maintained through manipulation, sustained by my willingness to believe the best about a man who didn't deserve it. "The hardest part," she said once, "isn't accepting that he lied. It's accepting that you believed him. But you believed him because you loved him. That's not weakness. That's humanity." I carry those words with me. They helped. So I grieved. And then I moved on. Last month, I ran into Tom at the Kroger on Abercorn. He was alone, buying groceries, a far cry from the dinner parties and golf club brunches of our former life. He looked older, tired. His clothes didn't fit quite right anymore. He'd lost weight. "Carolyn," he said when he saw me. "Tom." We stood there in the frozen foods aisle, 2 people who had shared a life for almost 3 decades, now strangers. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I know that doesn't mean much, but I am." I considered my response carefully. 24 years of marriage, 8 years of lies, 2 children I'd never known about, $1 million siphoned away to support a secret life. "You know," I said, "I believe you are sorry. Sorry you got caught. Sorry your life fell apart. Sorry you lost your family, your status, your reputation. He flinched. But I don't think you're sorry for what you did. I think you're just sorry it didn't work. I put my groceries in my cart. Milk, eggs, a nice bottle of wine for myself, and walked away. He didn't follow. 3 weeks ago, I had dinner with a man. His name is Walter. He's 61, a retired professor of architecture at SCAD, a widower with 2 grown daughters and a passion for historic preservation. We met at a fundraiser for the Savannah Historic Foundation, the same event where I met Tom, 30 years ago. It was just dinner. Good conversation, good food, a few too many glasses of wine, and a walk through the squares afterward. I'm not ready for anything serious. Maybe I won't ever be. But it was nice to remember that I'm still capable of feeling something. Something that isn't anger or grief or regret. The doorbell that I thought would destroy me actually set me free. Every day I wake up in my house, not ours anymore, and I make my own coffee and I walk my own dog and I live my own life. Not a life built on lies. Not a life spent supporting someone else's deception. My own life. Finally, my mother was right in that letter she left me. The truth is a gift, even when it comes wrapped in pain. Diana gave me that gift. And every day, I unwrap it a little more. If you're reading this, if you're going through something like this, know that you can survive it. You can more than survive it. You can thrive. Get a good lawyer. Document everything. Trust the people who tell you the truth, even when the truth hurts. And remember, the best revenge isn't rage. It's living well. It's living honestly. It's living free. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe. I share stories every day of women who refuse to stay silent, who chose themselves, who built something new from the ashes. The next story, it might be exactly what you need to hear. Trust me.
Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Hopefully every moment in the story has touched your heart, brought you some reflection, some emotion, and hope. Thank you for taking the time to experience it with us, and hope that each next story will always accompany you on your life journey.